to share some of my ideas on India's foreign policy. As student, you are aware that foreign policy is always determined by twofold factors: the domestic factors of the country and the global milieu in which your country is passing through. And in that case, if there is a change in any one of the dynamics, definitely foreign policy is going to change. But one thing is perennial, that is national interest. Because whatever the domestic scenario is, whatever the global changes are taking place, every country tries to fulfill its national interest, and that is the task of foreign policy making or operational part of the foreign policy, that how you keep adapted to these changes. And if a foreign policy adapts these changes in a fruitful manner, then it is a successful foreign policy. And if it fails to, then there is a lack in the foreign policy. So if we look at India's scenario, because if I talk about the 75 years of journey, then it will not be possible in this short span of time. But basically I can say the three major phases. One you have witnessed from 47 to 91. That is one kind of foreign policy we operated. Just in a 1 minute or two I can briefly tell about that. That global scenario was Cold War with two superpowers, and how to keep the interest of a developing country which is economically poor, politically unstable, require technology, no expertise in defense, having less military powers. So in that scenario we adopted the foreign policy of non-alignment at the global level and Panchsheel with our neighboring countries, so that we can keep ourselves well off in South Asian scenario as well in the global scenario. And to great extent we have been successful, because the kind of autonomy, kind of the freedom we enjoy, that has been tremendous, and the kind of progress we done, whether in the nuclear, whether in the defense, whether in education, whether in scientific development, whether in other fields, that has been tremendous. That was the tribute to that one. But as you know, the second phase is totally different. Because in second phase the world was different. 91 to 2014. Basically it is 2008 where economic meltdown started, but we can extend it to 2014. In that scenario, you have a world which is faced with the chaos, uncertainty. Some say it is going to be unipolar, some say it is going to be multipolar, some say it is... But basically I perceive it was a non-polar kind of world where the center of power was not fixed. That who are the 2, 3, 4, 5 are the determinant of the global scenario. In that scenario, and second was the offshoot of globalization, that is a total U-turn from the socialism, communism and all kind of welfare activities to the market economy. So these two unfolded things which we witnessed suddenly, so India's foreign policy have to keep track with all these changes, and then it started initiating the economic reforms, coming closer to USA, because that was the power that we later on, when things unfolded, the risk was also covered through RIC, Russia, India, China triangle, so that we can compete and we can cooperate with America, but we have apprehension of also from Europe to Asia Pacific this change. So we also extended from Indian Ocean to Asia Pacific scenario. So that was the second phase. But in the end of the second phase, we also witnessed that slight economic meltdown started when 2008 economic scenario declined in USA, terrorism also became a major factor. By that time, India also became a global nuclear power. So that was changed. So the third phase that I am going to discuss in detail this morning, that is the phase of this Modi regime. How in this period from 2014 to today, in this one decade, how our foreign policy moved from one objective to another, and what has been success and failure that we do. So what are the trends? But before the trends, why this change? Because global change started from 1991, that continued. This globalization was a continuous process even today. The basic shift was the domestic change in polity. India witnessed a new kind of polity which demand a new kind of foreign policy orientation also. First thing was, as I said, the non-polar kind of world, and where the new regime put emphasis to become the power that be. They become more assertive that they should be acknowledged as a power. Earlier we did not proclaim this. Indirectly, definitely India had a prestige, India has a global position, but we never proclaimed. But now this regime openly proclaimed that we want to be power that be. And the word uses that we are going to be the balancer. So we won't be on the margins or periphery. We are going to be the balancer. That was the one reason that is foreign policy shift was there. Second reason was somehow this party has a rightist ideology with the thrust de-Nehruvian philosophy in mind. That every initiative or foreign policy have to de-Nehruvian. How Nehruvian ethos could be deleted and new kind of ethos could be developed. That was also in the back of mind of the policy changer. Third thing was the ideological mooring. This is the rightist regime, and definitely it will be more comfortable to the rightist government like USA, though we started earlier also during Manmohan Singh time also. But this thrust was more emphasized how the right wing, and also this globalization was also promoted with more vigor, though it was earlier also, but sometimes the human phase of globalization is also talked about, socialism with globalized thrust, but now a naked kind of corporate globalization was also ideological in mind. And the kind of institutional arrangement, your non-alignment become defunct, your United Nations also become irrelevant. So that also facilitated, that is why I considered 2014 is a major shift in India's foreign policy. But as I have said, if you look minutely, don't get swayed by the statement that there is a total change in foreign policy, because national interests are always permanent. It is only the strategies, mobilization, operationalization of politics that changed, not the basic thrust. And definitely, if there is a new kind of scenario, so how to cope with that scenario, that has always been a thrust of any regime in power. So they also had the same national interest, but how to fulfill that, what kind of strategy to be adopted, what kind of initiative to be taken, how new methods to be introduced, that is the change you will witness. So in that case you find, first and foremost thing is from non-alignment to multi-alignment. As I have said, because uncertainty was there, non-polar world order was there, so in that, so they have back of mind to become assertive power, so they try to mix up with various groups of both power centers of the world, maybe your earlier referred G20 or BRICS or your Quad or number of such arrangements were there. Some are political, some are strategic, some are economic groupings, but that was there. So this was the one trend you find, that with more assertiveness, multi-alignment was the thrust rather than to remain non-alignment. And that is why they talk of balancer. And if you want to balancer, so you have to operate between the powers that be. So at that time it is 5, 10 or 12 nations which are powerful, so you have to operate and adjust accordingly. That was the thrust. Second thrust was the neighborhood first. That is the compulsion of India's foreign policy since very beginning. Because we can change our history, no, we can not change our history and geography. So neighbors will be there whether it is a liability or asset, and if you want to play a prominent role in the global politics, you have to piece in at your house. And that is the tragedy which I come later on. And that is why in the beginning, whether your Prime Minister or Foreign Minister have trips to almost all these countries and try to mobilize the kind of support and strengthen its, so neighborhood first as was the thrust is always there. Third thing which is there is that informal allies of the US. That becomes categorically clear. Started from Manmohan Singh period. Starting in 91 we have Kekelektor proposal, but later on, coming to 2002, we have the next strategic partner. Coming to 2005, we have a nuclear civil deal which became operational in 2008. But ultimately, 4 defense pact started from the 2002 till 2020. 4 major defense agreement was signed with the USA. Those agreement in one way or the other way make you the military ally of the USA. So it was not formally called, but we become informal ally of the USA. That was the thrust because of the rightist orientation, because of the pragmatic, because US was powerful country available at that point of time, and that was the thinking of the present regime also. So we become the closer military ally informally. The formal word is not used, but 4 agreements signed with the US that makes you that. This is the third trend. Fourth trend, we find that more emphasis on diaspora. Earlier also we have started the celebration of Pravasi Divas, but that was in a lighter tone for particularly the economic aspect, that they come as an investor, but later on the emphasis was shifted and linked to the present regime's ideology of nationalism, to how this Indian nationalism should be promoted at the global level. And in that case, definitely the more thrust on diaspora, and that is why our Prime Minister, wherever do the visits, he makes it a part of the consultation and meeting with the Indian people living there. So they will not only contribute to your FDI or other things, but they will also work as a lobby in the developed country for your country, particularly in the US. The Indian diaspora works as a lobby with the present regime in favor of India's interest. So that was also a new thrust you will discuss. Then a new component come. Earlier we don't use the strategic because we give a military connotation, because with the non-alignment we say no to military blocks. But now we start using strategic partnership, and we have so far having nearly 30 or 30 plus partnership with the different part of the world. We are partnered with China, we are partnered with USA, we are partnered with Russia. Most of the important countries we have. Sometimes it is problematic when you talk some smaller African countries also you have strategic partnership. That gives a question mark, but basically, and now this definition of strategic partnership has also expanded. Expanded in the sense the total cooperation, military, political, economic and social, all type of cooperation become part of the strategic partnership. So that was a new connotation used that we don't use during the non-alignment because we are not having the military bloc kind of orientation, but now we started using the strategic partnership program. another trend we find use of the soft power. Because earlier we were not talking of hard power, we don't talk, though domestically we are progressing, whether nuclear or defense armament, but that word was not used that we become hard power or military power to show this strength to the world. But now they have this assertion, but along with that assertion, the nationalist ethos of the regime not only limited to the diaspora, but it also extended to the soft power. That how Indian cinema, Indian religion, Indian custom, Indian traditions, that should also translate. That should also give impact. So we should mobilize the nations not only because of just mere the military way or the economic, but also in a soft power way, or the democracy is also one of the ethos that we propagated, that India is the best example of the democratic regime. So these kind of the soft power values are also time and again there. But at the same time, development in hard power also accelerated. We did not stop, or the pace or momentum, because now we start openly saying whether we are getting our, though multi-purchase continue as we use in the 80s and 90s, we are purchasing weapons from USA also, France also, from Russia also, whatever sources, but that kind of the total reliance on the USSR was done away with. Now earlier we have 80 to, in some cases, 90% reliance on the USSR arms and manufacturing. Now that has not been. Now we are having a lot of, if you get a list, lot of armaments we are getting from America also, France also, Germany also, different countries. So, and indigenous also. We are talking that earlier we were not talking that we are manufacturer. Now we are manufacturer as well. We want to be exporter of the arms also. That it is not mere manufacturing, but we can have export also. So that was also, even with soft power, hard power concept was also given open say. And with this, there are all number of things, but I think most of the things we have heard earlier also repetition, and I don't want to prolong that lecture also because that becomes boring. So these are the major trends. Earlier, some more issues I can take in your question now when you ask some questions. But so these are the major trends. It means we are stuck. Another trend which I remember is the personal diplomacy. Earlier, diplomacy was used behind the curtain. As Dr. Chanchal had said, now foreign policy became the open agenda for domestic politics also. Earlier, foreign policy was the domain of the elite. Common person are not concerned with. Mostly people are knowing about the USSR getting aid or other things, or sometime earlier through PL 480 we are knowing the USA's kind of wheat and other things we are getting, but not beyond this. But now they have make it public also, open also, and at the same personal. Personal, particularly if I talk about our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister, when used to meet the head of the states, he don't follow those diplomatic protocols. Rather, sometimes he used the personal word I. When Barack Obama came, he said I and Barack. So very informal diplomacy started and personal diplomacy, and that is why if you calculate, our Prime Minister has visited more than 60 to 70 countries during these 10 years, building personal rapport with the most of the head of the states. So he felt that personal rapport also brings, but to my mind, that will come to the later part, to my mind, because countries are more governed by their national interests rather than the personalities. So that I will come later on. But that was also visible. So these are the trends visible during the last 10 years. So this is how the change have taken place. I have explained to the reason why change and what are the trends. Now what are the challenges? Despite that, there are 4 or 5 major challenges we have still to handle despite all these goody. First and foremost challenge is our neighborhood. Because in our neighborhood we don't have any friendly country. So unstable relations, starting from the Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, with all we don't have. So this is, and if India wants to play a global role, there is a need for peace in South Asia. Until unless India have a good relation with its South Asian neighbors, it cannot be the power that we. So for that also we had to make a rethinking. Sometime earlier they used to say the big brother approach, but we have meltdown through Panchsheel, through Gujarat doctrine, through other initiative also, but still the confidence of the neighbors has not been won by us. So this is the big challenge even the policy makers today, that how to handle their neighbor. This is a very, very big challenge. Second is lack of consensual approach on the principles of foreign policy. Earlier up to 91 or even up to 2014, there has been basic consensus across party on the fundamentals of India's foreign policy, principles of India's foreign policy. But now we are witnessing, except this one example of Bangladesh crisis that the all party meeting was called and all the party have shown faith with the government that they will handle the situation. But most of the time that discussion with the other parties or group, other divisions was missing. Otherwise, we may be having difference of opinion in the domestic politics, that is natural. But on foreign policy, because of the country's interest, we have to be common. But during the last 10 decades, if you differ on certain issues, then the situation becomes alarming. Sometimes it is taken against the country, sometimes it is taken not positively. So in that sense, that consensus on foreign policy principle is required. This is the second challenge we have. Third challenge is about the economic development. Because now 91, आप बंद कर दीजिए यार, सुन लो, ये क्या मोबाइल में बहुत सारी चीज़ें पड़ी हैं, क्या करोगे? मैं आपसे बात करने आया हूँ, मोबाइल में तो कोई बात नहीं. So, third thing was that since 91, we know this world is moving from the strategic and political to economic dominance. And in economic dominance, we are proclaiming time and again that now we are fifth economy and we are projected to be the third largest economy. No doubt we are fifth largest economy. But here, I differ with the economist or professor of economics, if any. Because at the GDP level, it is true, we are the fifth largest because in terms of the GDP. But do we feel that this kind of GDP is distributive to the largest part of your human resource development? Because 30, 40 or 50 or maybe 100 people in the country is owning the 70-80% of your GDP. And rest of the population is not. That is a serious challenge. Because in most of the neighboring countries, the problem is less political but economic. There is unemployment, there is scarcity, there is inflation. People are not getting things. And that ultimately becomes volatile. And even, you see, even the developed world, when there is a scarcity of job in the USA or in European country, they follow the racialism against the foreigners. They feel that our job is taken by these foreigners. That kind of racism started. So your GDP is not the true recognition of your major power or to become the fifth largest economy. The GDP should be a distributive to the larger people so that you have a vital kind of a large number of human resource developed. Because we always proclaim that we are the country, we have 65% of the youth population. But if this youth is not translated into resource, then it is a merely chaotic population. So how to translate our economic development so to the reach to the largest population and develop a smooth and skilled human resource, because that human resource will bring all these things to your economy, to your FDI, to the foreign skills or to earning from the other part, otherwise difficult. So you have to rethink about this. Is also a challenge. We may become the third largest economy, but do we have the third largest human resource, skilled resource available? And if it is not there, then that kind of youth population cannot become advantageous. So to make that population advantageous. Another thing which somebody may differ, but as a teacher we have to take objective view. I don't belong to any party, and students should not belong to any party or group. Or students should have a clear vision of both negative and positive. And that is why I say that whatever I am saying, don't accept that. You research on that, analyze of that, read yourself, and then you accept or reject my ideas. So that is the purpose. So fourth thing is any kind of extremism is very harmful for domestic as well as foreign policy. Because what we are happening in all these countries, because we say they are having lack of democracy. If we give Bangladesh example, because authoritarian regime were lack of democracy. Lack of democracy means the plurality is not adjusted. Maybe see Maldives, maybe see here, maybe see in Nepal, maybe see in other country. If that kind of adjustment has created problems somewhere else, so why you consider? Because we are also minority in the US, we are also minority in Australia, we are also minority there. But our reputation is good because their democratic system is working. So you believe in that. Right or left, any kind of extremism is bad. Whether pro-left or pro-right, that is bad. So for foreign policy, you have to be plural in outlook, because democracy is the strength of this country. If we distinguish India from all the third world country, it is because of the democracy. We are unique. Otherwise, in your neighboring country, democracy have failed, and that is why they have lopsided development. That is they have chaos. That is they are not institutionalized. So we should institutionalize democracy by recognizing plurality and not going to excessive left or right approach. That should be there. And now again, if you look at the present government, now the same thing is coming again, what we are talking in non-alignment, in the new form of recognition of Global South. Because earlier also what we are doing is that since the power that we are having dominant world order, so we are challenging that world order on the basis of Asian, African, Latin American collectivity. So again we are starting with the same kind of ethos, with a different kind of strategy. The how to unite the Global South so that the negative of globalization could be avoided. Because now the political problems are not there, military problem is not there, because now nobody can win a country through war. You have seen Ukraine, Russia. So now with the economic strength, you can bring out that change. So for that Global South, our regime has acknowledged this nowadays, and that is why Prime Minister and all the policymakers time and again emphasizing on Global South. That is also a big challenge, how to unite that. Because in Global South, the challenge again come, you have to be economically sound. Because one problem with our neighbor is China, and China is doing through because of the economic investment loans and other things which we are not able to. So if you are really good economy or really sound economy or third world economy of the world you are developing, you can also promote that economic development in the global south. That can be your backbone of leadership if you want really to have a leadership quality in the global order. And the last thing which I wish to share is that India has to be a mix of hard and soft power. You cannot always win as a hard power, neither you can always win as a soft power. So India need is to smart power. Smart power means how they can utilize, visualizing the domestic and external conditionalities, the better gain for our national interest, for our foreign policy. So if you are able to attain the goal of our foreign policy in a smarter way, that will be the finest thing of our foreign policy making as well as operational part. So this is a brief which I wish to share this afternoon with you. Now this house is open. Now you can ask any question, comment, criticism, query, whatever you wish to share, you are welcome. एक कागज दे दो छोटा सा.
Is any way out of it, that how could we do it? So maybe you could suggest.
On this question,
Sir, I have a question about the diplomacy changing shift, Indian diplomacy shift, like person-centric approach to country-centric approach. Then what can we say that which one is beneficial for a state, a person-centric diplomacy or a state-centric diplomacy?
जिससे मिलते हैं तो वो इंडिया को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, व्यक्ति नहीं है. लेकिन व्यक्तिगत संबंधों से थोड़ी बहुत चीज़ें सरल हो जाती है, एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग आसान से हो जाती है. जैसे किसी टाइम नेहरू कनेडी के बीच में थी, या नेहरू के साथ जो है आपके सोवियत ब्रिजनेव, कोसिगिन या इनके साथ में रही, तो इसी तरह से थोड़ा आसान हो जाता है. लेकिन बेसिकली ये है, वो व्यक्ति इतना महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है, वो देश है. आज वो किस कंट्री को, यदि इंडिया मजबूत है तो दूसरे वाला उस प्रधानमंत्री को भी उसी मजबूती से, उसी वार्मनेस से रिसीव करेगा. यदि इंडिया इकोनॉमिकली कमज़ोर है, पुअर है, तो वो उस प्राइम मिनिस्टर को भी उसी का ये कहता है स्ट्रेटजिक ऑटोनॉमी रखना नहीं. देखिए, डिप्लोमेसी में कहा जो जाता है वो होता नहीं एक्चुअल में. इसलिए पॉलिटिकल साइंस के स्टूडेंट को जब अखबार पढ़ते हैं या किसी नेताओं की स्पीच पढ़ते हैं, चाहे देश के हो या विदेश के, बिटवीन द लाइंस मीनिंग समझना चाहिए कि इसके पीछे की सोच क्या है. तो यदि हम इराक ईरान वार में या इराक इजराइल वार में, गाजा वार में हम यदि हिस्सा नहीं ले रहे, न्यूट्रल खड़े हैं, तो अमेरिका को ये है कि वैसे हमारे स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर्स हैं, दे शुड सपोर्ट अस. लेकिन हमने अपने कंट्री का इंटरेस्ट देखना, हमारे इंटरेस्ट ईरान में भी उतने ही है और इजराइल में भी उतनी है. तो इसलिए वो कहते हैं स्ट्रेटजिक ऑटोनॉमी गलत है, लेकिन हमें यह लगता है कि हमारे लिए स्ट्रेटजिक ऑटोनॉमी. तो नॉन अलाइनमेंट में भी यही था. ऐसा नहीं था हम अलाइन नहीं थे, हम सोवियत संघ के साथ काफ़ी हद तक अलाइन थे. लेकिन नॉन अलाइनमेंट का कॉमोफ्लोजिंग एक्ट ये था कि हमने जहाँ जुड़ना होता था वहाँ जुड़ जाते थे, जहाँ देश के अंदर नहीं होता वो कहते नॉन अलाइंड है. तो वही स्ट्रेटजिक ऑटोनॉमी है. तो हम अपने कंट्री के इंटरेस्ट से सोचेंगे, अमेरिका के इंटरेस्ट से नहीं सोचेंगे. तो उनके कहने से ये हम स्ट्रेटजिक ऑटोनॉमी अपना रहे हैं, तो इट इज़ आवर चॉइस टू रिमेन साइलेंट और टू रिमेन एक्टिव एट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. एक्सट्रीमिज्म कोई भी होता है, चाहे आप घर में देखिए, परिवार में देखिए, या व्यक्तिगत रिलेशंस में देखिए, कहीं ना कहीं वो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी चाहिए कि आप दूसरे को भी अकोमोडेट कर सकें. दिस इज़ द ब्यूटी ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी. डेमोक्रेसी यही है कि आप डिफरेंट ओपिनियंस को कमोफ्लोज करके एक निर्णय लेते हैं. तो यदि यहाँ मैं कह दूँ जो मैंने कहा है सत्य है, तो हो सकता है आधे स्टूडेंट चुप रहे, बाकी आधे नाराज़ भी हो सकते हैं. लेकिन जब हम आम सहमति से कोई बात करेंगे तो वो चीज़ आप ग्रहण करेंगे, आप, क्योंकि वो आपको समझ आ गई, आप कन्विंस हैं. तो कन्विक्शन के साथ कीजिए. तो इसलिए एक्सट्रीमिज्म तो होता है अथॉरिटेरियन, थोपना कोई चीज़. और जब कन्विक्शन के साथ करेंगे, यदि आप किसी को ये कन्विंस कर सकते हैं दिस इज गुड, तो उसमें बुराई नहीं है. तो वही प्लूरैलिटी जो है डेमोक्रेसी की ब्यूटी है. तो ये कुछ एक सवाल थे जो आपने पूछे. मैंने कोशिश की है कि कुछ चीज़ों का, हाँ, वेरी गुड।